Because I think a lot of people, they'll associate self-care with like getting a massage or going to the spa. But what they are not really figuring out is like, what are they doing beyond that surface? Is once that massage gets into your body, how are you doing the same thing to your mind, body, and spirit? We all have those friends that either trust everybody or trust nobody, right? That's the tiny baby. That tiny baby at both ends of the spectrum didn't get the needs met in the way that they needed to get done. So the one that trusts nobody is like, I'm the one that has had to take care of myself since whenever in utero on, versus the one that trusts everybody because they have to take care of everybody else in order for them to get their needs met. So this isn't a bad thing to happen in somebody's life. Like what you were saying, it's not like this major horrible trauma, right? But it was a change that happened that kind of kicked him out of the throne, and then he didn't get his needs met as much, right?
Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. Today, you are in for such a delight. If you think about therapy and you think, oh my gosh, I got to go like drudge up the past and it's going to be so depressing and so hard, then you are going to have a very massive paradigm shift as we have this discussion with Dr. Cio today. I am so blessed that once again, when I traveled to an event for my own expansion, I made a friend, Mike Pawlowski, who's on the show months ago. And so you can check out that episode. But he introduced me to Dr. Cio, and she is an EMDR specialist and so much more. And I remember the first time speaking with her and just feeling myself expand through the phone call, through the conversation. And we were just having a fun, like, hey, what do you do? Who are you? That kind of conversation. In this conversation today, we're going to break down what EMDR is. And Dr. Cio takes a very different approach than a lot of people on EMDR. And I love the aspirational approach. And so I want you to hang out. If you think that you've already checked the boxes on, I know what EMDR is. We've already done a podcast episode. I've already heard about this. I have a friend that does it. Just please give yourself an opportunity, wipe the slate clean, and give yourself an invitation and permission to step into hearing it from a completely different perspective and utilize in a completely different way. Additionally, we're going to talk about our grown-up self, all the littles inside of us, all the younger versions of ourself, and how they impact our day-to-day life. In fact, if you're watching over on YouTube, I'm showing you right now, maybe not, that on my phone, I have like kindergarten Julie on my phone, okay? And so it was really funny that when Dr. Cio came in today, I was like, that's really funny because I've been talking to my younger self and some other past versions a lot recently. So throughout this episode, I can assure you, because I've spent time with Dr. Cio, that you are going to feel yourself expand, and it's going to give you new perspective and opportunity in day-to-day life, like right now as we're having the conversation. So let's dive in. Dr. Cio, so excited.
I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to have you here. You've done so much for me without even really recognizing the power of our conversations. And I'm so grateful that we can serve collectively the conscious investors out there. We have to start with a question, and I know that we're going to dive into rich conversation. So the question is, what do you actually do, and how did you get started?
I'm going to give you the answer that doesn't give me a stomach ache. The answer of what I do is I do everything everywhere all at once. And that sounds a little crazy, but that's because my brain sorts the material that's coming in and figures out where it needs to land in my life. And some of those things happen in a professional office, and some of those things happen when I was 2 years old, right? And then I have to figure out, how do I take care of my 2-year-old in order to be able to have my professional take off here and be in the driver's seat? So if you're asking me the professional question, I've actually written a few articles on conscious investing and the relationship of money in relationships. And but if you were to look at my 5 different websites, they say 5 different things about what I do, and I do all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a little bit of a kindness that I'm asking your audience to be able to think about me, and that I I'm what I do the most is hold people wherever they are and just be able to say, I got you. And then I got you and I believe in you until you believe in you.
Hmm. If you can't feel that through your earbuds or through the screen, conscious investor, man, I already know that you can, because I can feel your heart in all of that, because it's so true. I love that. And I love that, I mean, in a sense, you're a Renaissance woman, and I value that, because it's one thing leads to another, and that opens up the gateway of opportunity. So how did you find yourself in this position? Some people end up sunsetting different elements because they feel they need to compartmentalize. How did you give yourself the permission to land where you are?
I am the daughter of two Save the Worlders. My dad was a public health physician, and we were stationed in the middle of nowhere, Texas, where he got paid with the chicken or the cash of the day sometimes. And my mom was a second grade teacher, which, thanks to my dad's salary, she was basically the social worker of teachers that would make sure her kids in her classroom were fed so that they could learn, right? So I already kind of
Mhm.
grew up in a public health mentality. So me slotting in how does mental health fit into the public health landscape is
Mhm.
just kind of in my blood. But if you're asking me, how do I narrow down what I focus on in EMDR? I think I can answer that lots of different ways. I was afraid to take the MCATs. I thought I was going to go to medical school. But instead, I gave myself a pass detour while I studied for my NCATs to get a master's in counseling psychology. And that's where I spent quite a bit of time. But during that time of doing therapy with people, I was working with people who had very, very little means. And I was a strength based therapist working with people trying to help them reach their goals back then with the limited tools that I had then. And then I went and I got my doctorate in nursing science and healthcare leadership. And I tested the app that is a former version of the app that's currently out of the market. Now we've got the third version, which is just the beta tester. So manage your expectations. We're working on the fourth one that will be one that will take to full market. But I tested to see if people could actually lower their stress and boost their confidence individually on their device, but at the same time in a group setting. And I found that I was able to lower the youth, ninth grade algebra students were able to lower their test anxiety and boost their self confidence in just 1 minute of use before taking their test. And so
Whoa.
that to me was like, we need to get this out to everybody and get people using it. 1 minute people can do.
That is so powerful. And I feel like you're just the gatekeeper of opportunity for people in their life. Let's go ahead and shift a little bit, because I really want to bite on that and sink into the app. But I know that there are some other areas that we really need to go into. And so let's just transition and talk a little bit about EMDR. And you use it in such an aspirational way. It's so beautiful. Can we just talk about what is EMDR? And let's just start right there. What is EMDR?
EMDR is based on adaptive information processing. And what that means is that can you see my hand, or am I holding it up just for myself?
I can see your hand.
Okay. So our memory networks connect everything together. So little bits of pieces of information stored all over our brain come up in these branches that connect to basically hubs of our memory. And those things may be things that happen in the past that start to feel familiar in the present. And if it gets stuck there in the past, then we relive it in the present as if it's happening again. So the idea
Mm.
is we want to unstick that, move it into our working memory, make a new relationship to it so that we can start having positive beliefs about ourselves, manage our own emotions, increase our own window of tolerance to handle a little bit more of what life brings us, and show ourselves that we're the ones that are in control. If we can do that in the present, we put ourselves in the driver's seat, then we're going to be able to see a future that looks a little bit different. So, I mean, I could talk all day about this because, I train people and work with people all over the world on exactly this.
Literally, conscious investor, you are being absolutely spoiled right now. So, what does this mean? Like, who is this designed for? Who's going to benefit most from repositioning memories, and how would somebody actually understand and recognize and opt in and say, "This is for me. This type of therapeutic practice is like this is what I need."
So that is the world's best question because there's a misconception that EMDR is only for trauma, and it's not. We do have a lot of studies. There are over 500 studies in EMDR. EMDR basically addresses by using 8 phases of a protocol, and it tackles those memory networks that I just described in adaptive information processing. So you can use it for survival brain. But the thing is, if you use it for survival brain, what we're doing is we are addressing these symptoms that are coming in the present that came from the past until we can get alive enough to be able to see the future. We increase that window of tolerance, and then we start seeing the future that we want to have. But you can also use it on a brain that's already a got this brain. Like, Julie, come on. The first day I met you, you already had a got this brain, right? Like, the world is your oyster. Everything is possible, right? Other people see people like you and me and they're like, oh, they're just lucky. These are lucky people because we're content and good things happen to us. But really, what we've got is the good fortune to be able to feel safe and connected and figure out how to be resilient in ourselves. And that ends up showing in the world like we have healthy relationships, like annoying things are able to roll off of us. And like we're pretty much in control of our lives. And we come off as having this like got this mindset. But we can use EMDR for that as well in placing future goals that we want to meet. And then reverse engineering what we need backwards. Like, well, why aren't we getting that now? Right? So we can reverse engineer that to be able to reach that goal faster, smarter, and hopefully less painful.
I love this. Let's dive into this just ever so slightly because conscious investor, I know that you're there. I know you've been doing a lot of inner work and that you're just ready to be at the moon, on the moon, beyond the moon, exploring the entire, realms that are available to you. So what does this look like for, is this just simply like visualizing and dreaming about where we want to be and seeing that and then reverse engineering? Like, what does that actually look like in practicality?
I love this slide and I love teaching this slide because if you think about a company or an organization or a school or an academic institution, a university that's only focused on grades or productivity or the bottom line, you are basically creating and investing in keeping your people around 10 years old.
Whoa.
Right? So let's look at this here.
Wow.
Your workforce becomes an industry versus inferiority workforce. So then you're looking around at all your neighbors and they're 10 years old. But the thing is, they're in a grown up body and you expect them to be behaving as a grown up.
Right.
But when you're triggering their kid, the school age kid, it may be that you're also triggering some of these other boxes as well in the way that you communicate how you expect them to be able to be more productive for whatever place you're in, school, work, whatever dynamic.
Well, it's really interesting to think that, just by nature of how our educational system is arranged is that it really keeps us in this stunted reality where where we're being conditioned to not aspire, to not excel, to not really step into who we're created to be. Like all of the potential and possibility that we're hardwired with. This is something I believe to my core is like our DNA is, 1 in 70 billion. It's just like we're so unique, but then we go through this process and instead of having that uniqueness celebrated and the opportunity to connect with it, we're conditioned to be like, just stay here. So a ceiling's put on us, it feels.
Yeah. Well, why do you think so many doctoral candidates leave ABD? All but the dissertation is done because they start to believe I'm not good enough or I
Mm,
don't deserve it. Right.
right.
And all of that, we could be having way more educated community members that are sharing the amazingness of the research that they've already done to get to the place where we are. But we get in our own ways of our own success.
I'm just letting you know that this is landing for me in real time as we're recording this, as I'm dealing with some, Stephen Pressfield classic resistance. And I think that's the way a lot of high performers characterize what is actually reflected in what you're saying is that we say, oh, that's resistance. And it kind of, the conversation stops there. And I feel like you open the gateway to saying, like, let's talk about that resistance. Let's look at where that's coming from. It's so much deeper and you can get rid of that resistance.
Well,
Well, maybe
Julie,
not get rid of it.
actually, hold on a second. If you're willing, really seriously willing, I'm going to leave this here for a second. How old is that girl inside of you that you're saying is resistant, but may actually be thinking she's protecting you?
Mm. Real time conscious investor, this is what that looks like. Um, I think that this is somewhere in my elementary years, it's interesting that I've been going back to that kindergarten version of myself recently. And so I'm wondering if it is somewhere in that like 5 to 8 year old range. And I could definitely say like that 5 year old, and there's an 8 year old that I can always see very clearly in my life.
So the best part about EMDR is you don't actually have to tell me what happened during those ages, but I can ask you about them and it can stay in
Mhm.
your head because your head is going to go way faster with itself than it's going to be able to go from brain to mouth. So did something happen, a change, a move, a sibling being born, a family member dying? Did something happen around the age of 5 to 8 or 5 and 8?
I absorbed a lot of, and I'm a very transparent conscious investor. I'm transparent. And especially when sometimes it's like when we can have role models around us, it's really great. This is going to resonate, I think, with a lot of listeners right now is that there's no clearly identifiable trauma in the sense of the classic, massive negative life experience type situation where I wasn't ever, molested or abused or anything. But I do remember feeling unsafe and I remember feeling unstable. And I remember my home life just feeling a little volatile, and it's more because I was a child and I couldn't process and interpret the world around me. And so that little girl was like, well, I'm scared. There may be voices raised. And my parents didn't argue much in front of me, but I could still tell. You could feel I'm an empath. I could feel their energy. I could feel what was going on. And so it made me as a young child feel very unsafe and just wonder like, what's going to happen here? And so I think there's something with that.
Just the act of starting school is a change, and that happens right around 5 years old. Did you go to preschool?
I did not go to preschool.
So even more, right? Because you didn't have that transition time to warm up to just a few hours a day. Here you were put into school. Just that is enough of a change to put the 5-year-old on alert.
Interesting. Interesting. And at 8 years old, we moved. Not far, but we made a move. So I'm like, I wouldn't have put those two things together. That is so fascinating.
So it's not like it was the 5-year-old's idea necessarily to go to school, right? This is just something you got to do. So I'm hearing you wondering if you're the kind of person that thinks about bad things are my fault or I'm responsible for everyone and everything. I mean, you do have a podcast. You take care of everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm always like, I've got to protect. And I married someone who recently, like super rad Steve, he's identified through his own inner work. He was on a trip in Scotland and that with some men. And that's what came out of that trip was like, you're a protector. And so even collectively within us as a unit, a life unit, we're both wired that way.
So you've got 2 5-year-olds in this relationship, right?
Yeah.
So then so here's an opportunity, right? And to use this in real life
Right.
now for you to help his 5-year-old or 4-year-old know that it's okay for him to go and play now because the grown-ups have got it under
Mm.
control. He's not in charge of everyone and everything. And for him to give you that permission, it's okay to go play now because we've got this. I'm going to take care of you so you don't have to take care of everyone else. And then the two grown-ups show up for each other, but
Mm.
can see the 4-year-old when the 4 or 5-year-old is being triggered in that moment. And just the sweetness of holding the little one in your partner's face is a little bit of a gift, right?
Such a gift. And how is it? I love this because then it seems like this type of perspective also dismantles some of the defense mechanisms or I know we're not supposed to take things personally. Thank you. I love you, Ruiz for the 4 agreements, but humans do struggle and I do struggle with taking things personally even still. So it almost dismantles a lot of that to be able to say and give permission to say, "Oh, this is this part of you, this beautiful part of you." So when we try to give permission, and I'm going to I don't want to make assumptions. Again, another one of the 4 agreements, but so edit this as you will. Can we? This transcends 5-year-old version. This is like for any of the versions. If we're 55, we've got all these different versions. We can just like identify what that is and support our partner or our close ones in that capacity.
Yeah. I mean, it often doesn't show up too nicely, right?
Right.
Because usually it happens under distress and under high stress situations. And a 4 or 5-year-old doesn't have the window of tolerance and doesn't have the self regulation and control. So it might look like, "Wah!" Right?
Right.
And your adult partner is like, "Whoa, what's that?" But if the adult partner can zoom up and go, "Oh, their 4 or 5-year-old just got triggered here. And I just need to be self regulated to hold them until they get back into safety and connection again with themselves. And then we can co regulate with each other again and have the beautiful relationship that we have of having two save the worlders under one roof."
Right. That is true. That is to save the worlders. So okay, let's extrapolate this concept and let's just dive into more of those, like just how our grown-up selves have so many of our little selves in us. Can you unpack that further because now conscious investor, you got a little sampling of like, okay, well, this is real time, like how I can identify, just and reconnect with parts of me. But there's so much more depth to this, I know, because you are a person of richness.
Oh, thank you. I'm figuring out where to dive into this pond because if we just start from the beginning, we all have those friends that either trust everybody or trust nobody, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's the tiny baby. That tiny baby at
Whoa.
both ends of the spectrum didn't get the needs met in the way that they needed to get done. So the one that trusts nobody is like, I'm the one that has had to take care of myself since whenever in utero on, versus the one that trusts everybody because they have to take care of everybody else in order for them to get their needs met. So they put themselves
Wow.
last, but it's because they get a secondary gain of taking everybody else so that they get something enough to be able to continue to survive. So what we're looking for actually is neither one of those things. It's in the middle to be able to say, oh, listen to what your body is telling you. What do you believe about yourself in this situation? What feelings come up in this situation? What control do I have in this situation? Where am I feeling it in my body? So that you can be the one that's in the driver's seat as the adult version in you, who can now understand then when their trust buttons are being triggered, they need to go and hold on to their tiny baby. I keep these weighted animals. These are just from Target,
So
not to
cute.
give Target a shout out, but they have these weighted animals and they're great because you can just put them on you and already feel a little bit of a somatic difference in your body, just knowing that you're the one in control of picking up.
Whoa.
So even just right now, cross your arms across your chest and give yourself a little hug. What do you notice just there?
Yeah, that it's I literally felt myself just relax. Like, okay.
So now tap slowly back and forth and see what happens in your body. What do you notice?
Well, I noticed that that little protector in me wants to come out and say, "Hey, conscious investor, if you're not driving, you can follow along on yourself." Now, back to the regular programming.
Exactly. But it didn't take much, right?
Right.
It just took taking the time to see the little one, and you saw the big one, and you held her in your body, and you were in the driver's seat.
Is this partly why like support animals and such are so helpful to
Well,
people?
we can do a whole show on that if you want to, but that's about safety and connection, right? And being able to co-regulate with a being who doesn't, the care that you're giving in the co-regulation isn't something most of the time that's going to hurt you, right? There's a loving
Right.
relationship there, your expectations. You're not going to get the same challenges that you are in co-regulating with people who talk and have attitudes and stuff like that. Not that my
Yeah.
95-pound German Shepherd doesn't have an attitude. He totally does. But most of the time, I know he's there to protect me, and that in the morning he's gonna be waiting for me with my shoes to go take him on a 3-mile walk on the hills by our house, and that realistically his mirror neurons are looking in mine knowing I'm going to make sure he's fed, and
Yeah.
I'm looking at him going, you're not going to let that coyote chase me, right? Right. So we take that, our relationship with our animals, and then we take it to the other relationships that we have in our lives.
Oh, interesting.
So our children, our partners,
Mm.
our co-workers, our bosses, authority figures. And we can see like this 95-pound German Shepherd could eat me in a second. And
Right.
he doesn't because we trust one another, right? We co-regulate with trust with one another.
Interesting. I just as you're holding the weighted animals and just doing this motion of like just me hugging myself, I'm just it's like, oh, I wonder. I've been drawn. I'm like, oh, I want to bring my cat in here now, and I, it's like, you just want to have this. That makes so much sense. What else is there about your? I love the element of trust with looking at the 0-year-old and saying we trust nobody or we trust everyone. What are some of the other indicators that you have discovered about the childhood? And are there any that are really stand out that are really common with
Oh, for
amongst
sure.
humans?
I mean, I just finished a clinical consultation group, and one of our members kept saying, I don't belong here. Everybody else is better than me. I don't really matter. Like maybe I shouldn't apply for this position because I'm not good at it, like all of these things. But when he said, I'm not wanted, that was a trigger for me to go, huh,
Mm,
what was happening around the age of 2? Where I'm bad is born and I'm wanted usually is come around. And he said his brother was born when he was 1.5 years old, somewhere between 1.5 and 2 years old. And he was sick. His brother was sick.
oh wow.
So all of a sudden he had gone from having mama all to himself And now his baby brother is born and all of the attention goes to him. So this isn't a bad thing to happen in somebody's life. Like what you
Right.
were saying, it's not like this major horrible trauma, but it
Right.
was a change that happened that kind of kicked him out of the throne. And then he didn't get his needs met as much, right? So autonomy versus shame and doubt, the 2-year-old is scanning, looking for, are the grown-ups seeing what I'm able to do? Are they hearing me and meeting my needs? Is it okay for me to go get a cuddle, but also go run on my own and slide down the slide? Or they're waiting for me at the bottom of the slide? And if those things
Mm.
don't happen, then we start to have a little bit of shame and doubt that come in. And we start believing that it's our fault and I'm bad.
That is something that is, I have found that to be so common amongst people, that shame, doubt, I'm so bad, it's me. That's really fascinating to kind of trace it back to a time in life where that's where is that just where the brain is developing at that point?
Well, I mean, that's where the Ericksonian stages have been the closest to what we've been able to kind of see actually happens. And you did a pretty good job. Some of the other
Yeah.
development stages have been great too. And really looking, if you have extra time to read, I would hope that your listeners would listen to or read Dan Siegel's books, Whole Brain
Okay.
Child. The Body Keeps the Score is another really great one. I have a whole long list of them because I teach all of these courses and want people to know that there's access to resources. But for folks that struggle with safety and connection, Dana's, well, the polyvagal theory, another program that we can do one day, is really being able to understand what's happening in your body when you're going into a stress response, and that your vagus nerve actually takes over when you're going into fight or flight, or when you start to get tired of running and fighting and you actually go into dorsal vagal shutdown. And so our goals here are to be able to stay in our body. So one of the resources that I like to use for that one is Deb Dana's polyvagal exercises for safety and connection. I start with those three because they're three different chunks of what our bodies and our brains are naturally doing that just normalize our stress response and give us a little bit of a break when these littles get triggered in us.
And they do get triggered. Like, I know that I have, I mean, like, I've spent time doing so much inner work, and yeah, I'm like talking with my family, like, "Hey guys, like, this is what's going on. I'm sorry. I'm navigating this," right? It's funny to me because these aren't conversations I grew up with, and I'm trying to navigate this in a new way. And it really is interesting to see those different versions. Just say, "Hey, see me, see me, see me."
Can you pause on that one for a little bit?
Sure.
You just said something super important that most people don't actually hear, that mental health stigma has been such a thing, is
Mhm.
particularly in our generation. I think I'm older than you, but still, that making it safe for people to talk about it's okay for your needs to get met is part of
Mhm.
my job now, and our job for this generation to teach the younger generations how to do that and to really acknowledge you're right. We're not so good at that, but it doesn't mean that you didn't deserve it.
Mhm.
And now is not too late to make a difference for your littles, even from where I am right now, to myself and to the children and the other people and my colleagues around me.
Mm. Yeah, that's so good. And it really isn't normalized, and that concept of self-love in the environment I grew up in, it was stigmatized. I did not even, um I'm in my late 40s. I was probably right around 40 when I realized that self-love is not selfish. And I had to recontextualize that because that was the paradigm that it was framed in. And when I actually understood it, I'm like, "I'm not being selfish. I'm taking care of myself. There's nothing selfish about me taking care of myself. If I don't exist, then that means I can't take care of anybody. So I'm pretty sure I need to take care of myself." It was an interesting process to go through. And if you haven't gone through that, conscious investor, I want to encourage you to just like kind of lean into the underpinnings as to why am I associating this with selfishness, and and just tangle with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we actually offer a brain spa, which might be a fun thing for us to do one day if you
Mm.
want to guide your conscious investor through a brain spa for themselves.
Oh, that'd be so fascinating.
Because I think a lot of people, they'll associate self care with like getting a massage or going to the spa. But what they are not really figuring out is like, what are they doing beyond that surface? Is once that massage gets into your body, how are you doing the same thing to your mind, body, and spirit?
Hmm. So I have a friend that has done brain spotting. I've heard different things, but I actually haven't dove into that concept.
This one actually is different from brain spotting. This is a
Okay.
brain spa. So you take your head
Oh,
to
spa.
spa.
Oh, I
Um,
like this idea. SPA spa for the brain. I already love this idea. Okay, tell me more.
yeah. So we basically lead your brain, body, and spirit to this cellular level to be able to get to your most primitive, tiny pieces of you and rejuvenate them like we would if you were going to the spa on the outside, rejuvenating your face, right? Or your body, right?
Wow.
So we go inside and help that happen with your mind, your connection between your mind and your body. And then how do we radiate that to the light that other people see when we approach them? Right. So we bring this spa inside of ourselves in all of these concentric circles of who we are in our being with other people around us.
That sounds really magical, and it seems like that's something that one of the trips if you go to Dr. Cio's website, and we'll have a link in the show notes, but if you go to her website, you'll see there are so many different ways that you can work with her and have the support that you need. Is this on the menu as one of the experiences to have?
I don't know, but it should be.
Right. You're like, "I don't know, I have 5 websites, Jules, come on."
Uh, but on the drco.fun, it's probably on there. And if not, just, I mean, you can contact me if you want this for your organization. Or we say that you can do this as a Tupperware party for your friends. It's like better than Tupperware, and you leave just like refreshed from the inside out. And other
Wow.
people see it. And we
Wow.
bring all the boys. I bring like my low energy neurofeedback with me, my red light, my like all of my brain toys that I have that I use with my clients in my practice. I bring
Mhm.
this to people's homes and organizations and have people play with that at the same time that we're leading you through different exercises, organizational or personal, to your working with yourself so you can think about how changing and having this relationship to yourself at the brain spa impacts the people around you by you nourishing you.
Mm. Gosh, I kinda wanna just, like, fly you out and have you work with my family and just do a brain spa with my family.
So fun.
It
It's
seems
so
like
fun.
such a great, like, family bonding experience to have. I know that we're gonna come up on time here, and I wanna honor time. I have one final thing that has stood out with me that I wanna touch on before we wrap up, is that when we met, there were 2 things that just stood out to me. 3. 1, you're just so much fun. Your joy is just absolutely contagious in the best way possible. And for the first time ever, I heard someone talking about the aspirational approach, and I remember of utilizing EMDR. We touched on that a little bit. Can you just share an experience that you've had of working with a client, so that I know, conscious investor, you're there. You want to do really great things, and you're trying to figure out what is that gap? Like, why is there this little block? And what does that look like when clients work with you? And I just think of hot air balloons every single time I think of you. You'll know why
I'm
probably soon.
breaking new ice. I could give you a million examples, but I'm going to give you two. So one actually just happened yesterday with a kid who is, well, a kid to me, but he's a young man who is on a university baseball team and he wants to go pro. And what happened was he started to not throw so great and was starting to have some challenges coming up. And what we found out was the place that he felt safe last was on his high school team and on that baseball field. So we built a place for him to be safe and connected. And then we found out that this really terrible thing happened when he was there, and some other guy treated him terribly as if he were not worth the investment. So we just cleaned that up a little bit, and he was right back into, oh yeah, no, I am totally in the Dominican Republic, and I see myself throwing in the major leagues and go, like being able to go to training camp, able to go to spring training and all these places. And he's there, and he's already improved his pitching. And we've only met twice for a half hour each time. The next story.
I love this.
Right? The next story is actually, I have an article in Inc. magazine about the importance of being on the same page about investing in money relationship issues.
Yes.
So you're a conscious investor. If you two are on different developmental stages about your relationship to money, you will continue to not see eye to eye about how your money should be spent, how you should invest it, whether you're worth the money you're investing in yourself. All of these things will trip you up if you've got younger ego states that are running your show about your money. So, right?
Yes, and we absolutely need a link to that article so that we can link it in the show notes, because I think a lot of you conscious investors are going to want to check that out. But the element is like, I just love that it doesn't take weeks, months, years to resolve something. It's when you're working with an expert, this is a resolution that can come very quickly. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I call it brain surgery.
I love it. That's a new website, by the way. I just need you to have that one, like Mind Surgeon. Cio the Mind Surgeon. Oh, Dr. Cio, it's just amazing. I'm so grateful to meet you in person. Well, virtually for the first time. And I love the work that you do. I love the knowledge and the expertise, the way that you have just utilized your heartbeats to serve people so powerfully and elevating the people around you.
Julie, I feel the same about you. As soon as I met you on the phone, I told you I was transported even today, just seeing your face and hearing your voice. It was like the first time I met you, and you were just love and joy and just possibility. Everything is possible when you're with you.
Oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless. I think that's one area where we definitely connect on. It's like, wow, look at all these opportunities out there. It's so cool. What is your favorite place for people to connect up with you? Because I know Conscious Investor, there are parts of this that are definitely hitting home, and you're like, whoa. I want to understand more. I need to connect up with Dr. Cio. And you hear like, this is not, you don't have to be in person, and it's not a, weeks, months, years. So it's definitely worthwhile, Conscious Investor.
If you're just interested in my overall story, that's at the drcio.fun website, and you can email Cio at drcio.fun. But if you're more interested in learning about the app or downloading it, remember this is a beta version, so please be patient. But you can get in at the lower cost right now before we launch the next one at the end of the year. Gotthisapp.com. It's also available on Android and iPhone. Or if you're interested in working with me as a coach, you can reach out at any of those places. Cio at Got This App, Cio at drco.fun. Just be kind about my websites. It's too much information, not very pretty, because I'm a very good mind surgeon and not a great web developer. So a website manager.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you on that one. And where we apply our time is like, okay, well, here's the information. If they want the information, here it is. Like, I want to spend my time in the sandbox helping people and doing my mind surgery. Let's go there. Way more fun. Love it. Conscious Investor, go check out Dr. Cio. She's given you all the places. We will link them in the show notes below. I appreciate you so much. Remember, you can support the show for free. It doesn't cost you anything to listen to this, but you can support the show for free simply by following, subscribing, liking, rating, reviewing, sharing, like so many options to, shower confetti upon the Conscious Investor podcast. This grows organically because of amazing listeners like you. So please take a moment to show one type of love, like, follow, share, rate, review. Just show a little bit of love in your way today. Until next time, remember, life is a limited time offer. So let's live it and invest it really well.